They're the people that brought us to this dance, and they're the ones we should stick to.
Does he talk about farmers?
I don't even know anymore. No, he's not, because he doesn't care about...
He doesn't care about farmers. Alan said, what if we just protected the farmers? And he said, no thanks. Why is he doing that?
Because I suspect he wants to protect the mining sector.
Hi, I'm Richard Dennis, Chief Economist at the Australia Institute.
Hello, I'm Polly. I'm an advisor in the Climate and Energy team at the Australia Institute.
And this is the Spin Bin. Here at the Spin Bin, we take interviews and press conferences and we break them down so that you can actually understand not just what politicians are saying, but why they're saying it. And in today's episode, we're going to look at a great interview between Alan Jones and Matt Canavan talking about climate policy. Now, there's a lot to get into, isn't there, Polly? But at its heart, we've really got an attack from Alan Jones and Matt Canavan on the Farmers Federation, because the Farmers Federation support climate action, and in fact farmers are getting paid money to tackle climate change. And nothing enrages Matt Canavan and Alan Jones quite as much as helping farmers to tackle climate change. Why is that, Polly?
Well, I think more importantly as well, we're going to look at what Matt Canavan is really concerned about. He puts up a big...
Farmers?
Yeah, well, he talks a lot about farmers, but I think we'll see at the end what he's really worried about. I don't know if he is so worried about farmers, Richard.
Oh, well, let's look at the tape. Let's see what Alan's got to say.
So Matt Canavan has gone on the front foot this week in relation to this National Farmers Federation. What a mob they are.
Oh, what a mob! What a mob! Those National Farmers Federation fly-by-nighters that just showed up in the last week or two, all of a sudden talking about farms and stuff.
Do we keep playing and just let him finish this sentence?
What else?
What a mob!
What a mob!
A rabble.
A rabble.
Rabble! Mob, rabble. Sounds like a dangerous thing, this Farmers Federation.
They sit in air-conditioned offices over...
Oh,
Air-conditioned offices?
I wonder if Alan's studio's air-conditioned.
I wonder if Matt Canavan's office is air-conditioned.
I think the average tractor these days is air-conditioned.
Do we begrudge air conditioning in Australia? I don't know. If you're a farmer in Queensland, I reckon you probably... I don't begrudge them, but I think probably farmers...
You look like you're begrudging.
No, I don't.
I think you're begrudging. I think there's some begrudging in it.
I don't think it's a divider of class, the air conditioner anymore.
But maybe it's a traditional coalition value.
Maybe
it should be hot. Oh, well, let's see. We're all going to learn a lot.
Never known who they represent, but...
Okay, just stop there, because I think we need to explain who the National Farmers Federation are.
Who are the National Farmers Federation?
And who do they represent? So the clue's in the name, National Farmers Federation.
Yep.
They purport to represent farmers, and I'll just explain who they are. So they're like this national peak body that is made up of a membership of smaller agriculture and primary producers organisations.
Meat and Livestock Australia.
Yep. AgForce, which is the Primary Producers Association of
Grain
Queensland.
growers.
Yep. Beekeepers, I think, as well. Yeah. So you've got this one big peak body. Their members are smaller associations, and then the members of those smaller associations are farmers.
Farmers?
Yeah. Actual individual farmers or primary producers or growers. So they represent farmers. Right. And to answer your question, Alan.
Do we know anything about the board of the Farmers Federation?
Yeah, funny you should say that. They're all farmers
too.
Yeah, so I think they're probably representing farmers as well. The CEO has a farming background.
Right. So not politicians or journalists speaking about what farmers want, but farmers speaking about what farmers want.
Just imagine going to the bush and talking about net zero carbon dioxide emissions.
Oh, okay.
I can imagine. Okay, scene setting, good.
Yeah, okay.
Total emissions from transport and agriculture are equal to those from the generation of coal-fired power.
It's an interesting stat. Why is he saying that?
1 + 1 = 2. Agriculture plus transport equals coal. I think this is really interesting because we're going to talk about traditional coalition values and how the Farmers Federation are selling out the farmers, but didn't take long before we're talking about coal.
Keep coal in your head.
Keep coal.
Yeah.
I think
don't want to spoil it.
Spoiler alert, there'll be more coal.
From agriculture, 75 million tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. So reduce that by 35% is what they're talking about by 20.
So the 35%, I just want to clarify, is what New South Wales is talking about.
Right.
Not them.
Yep, them.
Yeah, it's New South Wales' 2030 target to reduce emissions by 35%.
So the Liberal National Government in New South Wales has got a 35% emission reduction target.
Yeah.
But in Australia, nationwide, our target's what, 26 to 28%?
26 to 28, yeah.
2030, and what do you get? If you've got 1.5 million cows, which the nation has, reduce the herd
That's dairy cows.
Dairy
We
cows?
think that's dairy cows.
by 525,000. Matthew Keane in New South Wales wants that by 2030. 58,000 cows a year. The beef herd's 30 million. Reduce that by 35%. That's
I'm a bit confused.
10.5 million. So get rid of 1.2 million. Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
This is bonkers. This is crazy.
At least he's confused too. I don't know where we've got. Why are we talking about cows, Polly?
Exactly. This is really irresponsible what he's doing, actually. It's just fear-mongering. What he's trying to say is that agriculture has been put forward as creating emissions, sure, but he's trying to imply that Matt Keane, with his 35% reduction target, wants to get rid of 35% of cows. So Matt Keane is going to be on a cow killing spree. But it's even worse. Like, he's mashing two sets of figures together. He's talking about the national figure for cattle.
Yep, naddle.
Naddle. That's
That's
what we
call
say
it
in
around
home.
here.
That's street. Yeah. He's talking about the national figure for cattle, but he's kind of trying to mash it together with a state-based target.
Right.
And then he's implying, nowhere, can I just clarify, I've read New South Wales Net Zero Stage 1 plan, nowhere does it talk about getting rid of cows. Honestly, he could have gone further. He could have said, Matt Keane, humans emit carbon dioxide, Matt Keane wants to reduce emissions by 35%, therefore 35% of the population got to go.
Warning, we're not really suggesting
We're not
Keane said
suggesting
that.
this, but that's the tactic.
It does follow.
Yeah. It's stirring up fear and anxiety.
So we've got the Farmers Federation, the Cattlemen's Association, the Livestock Exporters. They're not too worried about.
They want to take action.
They want to take
climate
action, and they're not running around saying someone's going to kill all our cows.
Exactly.
So where's he going?
Well, let's see.
million cattle every year. I mean, tell that to the bush. I've always thought the National Farmers Federation.
Tell that to the bush.
Sorry.
I think the bush know. We've got the meat. We've got the Cattlemen's Association. We've got the live cattle export industry. They're all supporting this stuff, and apparently we need to tell it to the bush.
I'm so riled up.
What's wrong, Polly? What are you thinking right now? We haven't even got to Matt Canavan yet.
Well, populated by people who know little about farming reality.
Well, we've already covered that. I think they've got farming reality covered.
I think the problem is the people with farming reality don't actually agree with Alan Jones and Matt Canavan anymore.
Matt Canavan has called them guilty of hypocrisy. He joins me. Matt, thank you for your time, but my God, it's pretty...
Hey, Matt looks good today.
He does. He looks...
He wears his high vis and he doesn't even have any coal on his
probably
face.
air conditioning in that office, I reckon.
Let's see how much he's going to hear to protect the farmers.
pretty rough when you've got to argue with the mob who are supposed to be representing your constituency.
This really bothers me because the National Farmers Federation is clearly talking to Matt Canavan. I think it's more a case of Matt Canavan not listening to his constituency because what they're saying is not what he wants to hear. So he's telling them what he wants to hear.
Well, Alan, it is disappointing, but this is the modern experience with lots of groups who don't want to get a rejection to the latest dinner party in Sydney. The problems become when you get to spend too much time in Canberra. If you don't have certain views, you won't be invited into polite company. And
Mr. Everyman.
A premium on that.
So what's he talking about? Why is he linking climate politics and the interests of constituent groups with dinner parties? What's going on?
Well, he's doing that. Alan Jones started it off early, the people in the air-conditioned offices. He's trying to strike a clear divide between the inner city elites who are going to dinner parties talking about their fashionable climate action compared with the honest, hardworking people, of which he's one despite his $300,000+ salary. And you'll see through this interview that narrative continues all the way through. It's people in the city who are against the good, honest folk in regional areas.
You made the point that 6 million hectares of pastoral land as a result of Kyoto had been taken from land use and reforested, but the National Farmers Federation seemed to be in bed with Labor.
6 million hectares of land have been taken from farmers. Taken from farmers because of Kyoto. What on earth is he talking about?
I don't know. Do you want to see if Matt elaborates on that?
I mean, there aren't many people prepared to stand up to this
notionally,
nonsense.
this is the incoherence here, Alan, that notionally the National Farmers Federation are against those policies that have stripped property rights off farmers and told them they can't develop their own land and converted that 6 million hectares, which used to grow food for our nation.
What on earth are they talking
They've
about?
stripped farmers of rights.
Stripped
Where does
farmers-
he get this 6 million hectares figure from? Do you know?
Yeah, so the 6 million hectares seems to be talking about the amount of land that farmers have voluntarily offered up to sequester carbon. So remember that Tony Abbott guy who wanted to get rid of a carbon price? Well, Matt Canavan was a big fan of his. And Tony Abbott said we're going to get rid of carbon pricing and we're going to have this direct action fund. And with the direct action fund, we're going to pay people to reduce emissions. So this was what the coalition took to the 2013 election. You don't want a carbon price. We're going to have a direct action where we're going to spend money paying people to abate. And the 6 million tonnes, it's not quite clear, Matt's not too clear about all these things, but 6 million hectares, I should say, seems to be about the size of the land mass that farmers have voluntarily said, hey, I won't chop down as many trees as I was going to. I'm going to let trees grow on this land rather than run crops on it. So taxpayers are actually paying farmers millions of dollars to improve the quality of their land, to sequester carbon dioxide. And just to be crystal clear, there's nothing compulsory about this.
No.
This is farmers saying, I'd like to participate in this rather than run some cattle on this land. I'm going to let the trees grow and the taxpayer's going to give me money.
Yeah, and so there is land clearing that happens that is regulated, but we don't think that this 6 million hectares applies to that. There is still, between 2010 and 2018, there was 3.5 million hectares of land cleared in Australia.
Yeah, let's be right now in Australia today, we are clearing enormous amounts of land. In fact, how about we have a look at some data? Okay, so what we've got here is total land clearing in Australia going back to 1990, right up until the most recent data we've got. Here around 2005, it fell, and this is Australia reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. We'll come to this, but this decline in land clearing is one of the major reasons that we in Australia tell ourselves that we've reduced emissions. And now it's stabilised at around 300,000 hectares per year. So this idea that all of our farmland's been locked up is absolutely ridiculous. We are clearing enormous amounts of land in Australia. But Mr. Canavan, Senator Canavan's talking about farmers being locked out of farming. No, a hell of a lot of land clearing still going on, and other farmers getting paid a lot of money to not clear land.
And he says stripped of their rights. Is that true?
No. What he's saying here is that the introduction of any restrictions on land clearing, and Queensland government, for example, did this back in the mid-2000s, he's saying that any regulation of an activity is the removal of some innate farmer's right. Well, if you live in suburbia and you want to build a 6-storey apartment block and the government says, no, you can't build apartments around here, well, has someone stripped you of your rights, or do you operate in a society where there's regulations?
Yeah, you usually have zoning, don't you? And a lot of farmers have leasehold properties.
Exactly.
Back to what it looked like before Captain Cook.
What's Captain Cook got to do with it?
Yeah, that's just a low-key dog whistle, isn't
a
it?
little dog whistle in there.
Yeah.
Like we came and we developed Australia.
We civilised Australia.
Yeah, we conquered the landscape.
Yeah.
And these air-conditioned inner city types want to go back to pre-Captain Cook.
I think there's a lot of people in Australia, including farmers, who would be all right with Australia looking like it was pre-Captain Cook. I think that was a pretty healthy ecosystem.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's a lot of koalas wouldn't mind a bit of that as well.
Turned up. So we've declined as a nation. We've adopted.
We've declined as a nation.
In what way?
Well, I don't know. The population's grown, the economy's grown, income's grown, life expectancy's grown. And let's remember, this guy's in government.
It's his job to improve.
But is he saying that since electing the coalition in 2013 that Australia's declined as a nation? Because, you know, if that's the case, maybe he should speak a little louder.
But that's a deliberate tactic too, isn't it? There's this something in behavioural economics called loss aversion. And if you make people think they're going to lose something, even if there's an equivalent gain, they will hold on to the thing that they're going to lose. So this idea that we have declined as a nation, that things are worse than they used to be, than those traditional coalition values times, whatever that is, that gets people worried.
So yeah, I agree entirely. It's not an accident that these fear campaigns are run about loss, but they don't want us thinking about the loss that climate change is going to cause.
If you're genuinely concerned about the climate impacts on farmers and you think they should have a voice in Australia, please share this video.
And those policies alone that have allowed politicians and the NFF to say, aren't we doing a great job? We're meeting our Kyoto targets, we're reducing carbon emissions. Carbon emissions are actually going up in the cities.
Well,
yes, they are.
This is where we agree.
Oh, Matt,
Mr. Canavan.
Please keep saying this. What's he talking about?
Yeah, the government is claiming that we have reduced our emissions by 20% since 2005. We've done another explainer about this, which you can find. But what that is a function of is this reduction in land clearing and some other stuff that happened in the land sector. So it is true, that's the only reason why we have reduced our emissions. They weren't climate policies though. And he's right when he says emissions are going up everywhere else.
So to be clear, our emissions from energy, industry and transport going up, but he's now at complete odds with the Prime Minister, who's trying to tell the rest of the world we're doing everything we can to reduce emissions when our transport emissions and our energy emissions are actually...
They're going up. They've gone up for the last few decades.
Exactly.
The only reason as a nation they've gone down is because the cities have sent their guilt bill, their guilt invoice to the bush.
Did they?
Have you sent off your guilt invoice today, Polly?
Was it their guilt bill or we've got some convenient carbon accounting here that makes us look good bill? The people in the cities care about farmers. We're not sending bills off.
And it's the bush that's been expected to pay, the farmer's been expected to pay for the moral...
We're paying farmers,
aren't we? Paying farmers?
Yeah.
Again, it's his government's policy.
Yeah.
We have the emission reduction fund, which he wanted instead of a carbon price. We are literally paying farmers, and 6 million hectares of land is now sequestering carbon because individual farmers decided it was more profitable for them to sequester carbon on their land than to run an extra cow or something. This is his government's policy.
And we wouldn't actually, it's actually quite hard to decarbonise in agriculture. We wouldn't probably be having this conversation if we had policies that were decarbonising the energy sector and transport and waste and manufacturing, which are relatively easy to decarbonise.
Unease of those in the cities about carbon dioxide emissions.
You are a star. Look, why not, Matt? Why not let the latte left from metropolitan Australia go their own way?
There's that subtle framing again. The latte left. Here we are. What's he going to do?
And have agriculture totally exempted from this stupidity.
Matt's going, wait, there is a really long pause here. Matt goes,
Now, let's be clear. We started this interview with the Farmers Federation are out of touch.
Yeah, I'm protecting farmers because NFF isn't listening.
And they're the proper people that we care most about. Conservative coalition values, and the farmers have sold out, the farmers' lobby groups have sold out the farmers. And Alan Jones has just said, well, what if we just left agriculture completely?
Yeah.
I wonder what Matt Canavan's going to say.
Look,
that was an awkward silence, wasn't it? All the anticipation's building. Again, we've just proposed we're going to leave all burdens on agriculture out. You'd be into this like a rat on the drone boat. That's bad pidgin English.
I don't want to have any of the stupidity at all. So I get worried when we start saying let's exempt agriculture because that just means the mining sector and our manufacturing sector will have to bear a bigger burden.
Very quick to defend the mining sector.
So we started talking about farming and how the farmers had been sold out. Alan said, what if we exempted agriculture?
He's throwing him a bone, saying, isn't this a plausible option to protect farmers? And Matt's going, whoa, don't be too hasty.
Why is he doing that?
Because I suspect he wants to protect the mining sector.
Right.
Yeah.
So who is it that's selling out the National Party's constituency? Seems like it's the National Party. And in fact, there was an interview recently where Senator Canavan said, you know what, farmers aren't really our constituency.
And actually, Barnaby Joyce himself has said, agriculture's not our, I'm paraphrasing, agriculture's not our main export, it's fossil fuels.
Right. So the so-called Farmers Party, with this whole interview is about protecting farmers, and actually Matt Canavan's worried that if we exempted the agriculture sector from reducing emissions, we would actually have to work harder in the cities and work harder in the mines, and don't want any of that crazy nonsense.
Actually, in 2017, when Canavan had to step down because there was questions about his mother's citizenship, he posted this really heartfelt statement on Facebook that said, again paraphrasing, I am so honoured to have represented the mining sector. Nary a word about farmers, the people he cares so much about.
What about
it was
the cows, Polly?
it was a long, heartfelt speech about the mining sector.
I don't think we should be doing any of it, Alan. We should be focused, as I say, on getting jobs back to this country.
I agree with that.
Rather than letting them being shipped off to other nations.
Now, I've got to tell you that Matt Canavan did an economics degree and an arts degree at university. He grew up in Brisbane and born on the Gold Coast. And his first job out of uni was to work at the Productivity Commission. You know which organisation in Australia has done more to make sure jobs went offshore than the Productivity Commission? No one. The Productivity Commission are the people that raged against assistance to the car industry, for example. And of course, it was the car industry driven offshore by the coalition government. Joe Hockey literally goaded the car industry and said, we're not going to give you the support you want. Go overseas if you want to. And they did. But here he is now. Oh no, it's all about manufacturing. It's all about keeping jobs here.
And that's a total non sequitur too. We weren't even talking about that.
No.
Like, why all of a sudden are you talking about keeping manufacturing jobs here?
China.
Yeah, China cows.
China, Captain Cook.
So these guys are going to defend my job. They're going to protect my livelihood, and that's why I'm going to vote for them this time. I met a bloke this morning at Gladstone. Kel runs a contracting company. He was wearing high vis.
Did his voice just change when he said
Hey,
that?
no vis.
All you did was wearing high vis. And again, back to this whole strategy. There's real jobs.
Yeah,
in
real
Australia.
men.
And they're male jobs.
Yeah.
You know, the implication is that manufacturing and mining, which have very, very high intensity of male employment, they're the proper jobs. Far more people work in the health industry, for example, but are they not real jobs? What's high vis got to do with all of this?
It's only a real job if you wear high vis. You're not a real job
I'm
man.
not a real job man. Well, I'm not sure. Well, I guess that's why Matt, I mean, here he is, he's an elected politician, fine, you can't have a democracy without politicians, but he and so many, they do this cosplay. They put the high vis on to kind of legitimise themselves. You know, it's like wearing a football jumper or something to show whose team you're on. But when they win elections, they talk about governing for all. But they only talk about this very narrow set of jobs. And yeah, it's a very gendered focus on jobs.
He's getting a cup of coffee and he came and said g'day. And first thing he said to me was like, we've got to drop all this hydrogen rubbish. This is going to destroy this town.
I just want to clarify what he's talking about. So he's in Gladstone, which is traditionally a big hub for gas and coal. And there's now a move to make Gladstone, or the area around it, a big hydrogen hub. So there's several sort of multi-million-dollar green hydrogen projects happening. So that's what Kel is talking about. Yeah, and he's probably been subject to a scare campaign too. So he thinks hydrogen is going to steal his job.
And let's be clear, like for people like Kel, for people who work in coal mines, for people who are worried about change, the problem they face is not the decisions made by Matt Canavan.
Yeah.
The problem they face is what our export customers want. So if people overseas want to buy less of our coal, we can't keep selling coal, and we've made a video about that. And if people overseas want to buy hydrogen, it's actually in Kel's interests that someone's going to try and supply the hydrogen. Kel doesn't have to work there if he doesn't want to, but if people overseas are saying, you know what, we'd like to buy hydrogen, it kind of makes sense that there's people in Australia trying to supply it.
And if Senator Canavan actually cared about Kel's job or other people's jobs, he would be saying, right, we need to transition you guys from this dying industry, and it is dying in the long term, to these new innovative industries, if he actually cared about people's jobs.
Yeah, but instead, again, scare campaign, hey Kel, we can keep the world the same. You know, imagine you went to all the people that worked at Kodak and you said, I know you don't like these digital cameras, I don't like them either. I'm on team film.
It's all about film.
And if I put enough political love on you for a while, we can pretend that digital cameras won't get invented. So I understand the concerns of people like Kel, but telling them everything's going to stay the same is not helping them.
No, it's desperately unfair.
And they're the people that brought us to this dance, and they're the ones we should stick to.
Does he talk about farmers?
I don't even know anymore. No, he's not, because he doesn't care about
He doesn't care about farmers. Alan said, what if we just protected
yeah.
the farmers? And he said, no thanks.
If you have a look in the news, there are so many headlines that say farmers want climate action. We've got a few headlines there. That's just a tiny subset. Farmers want climate action. He's not talking about farmers.
All right, so let's recap. Polly, what happened there? Were we worried about cows, or are we protecting coal?
I don't know if you're feeling as tired as I am. This is exhausting. Every interview with Senator Canavan starts with this kind of, I guess, strawman argument about protecting farmers from climate action. And then it's the same structure over and over again. It's we've got to protect farmers, but that morphs into so by protecting coal, we're somehow protecting farmers.
And are farmers in danger from likely climate effects?
Absolutely, they know that.
And are farmers saying we want climate action and we like it when you pay us to sequester carbon?
Absolutely, and it's in there. They're already experiencing the impacts of climate change. It's not coming. They know that they're on the forefront of those impacts.
So here at the Spin Bin, we try and break down the strategy behind this nonsense. And these are clever people. They're not making things up, but what they're doing is they're shifting the debate around in ways that suit them. And if, and it's a big if, we just wanted to put agriculture front and centre and say, how do we protect it? Then the first thing you do is reduce emissions everywhere else. But when that was offered to Senator Canavan, he went, oh, no. That would harm the coal industry. So, you know, which is it? And sure, the Nationals now admit not many people work in agriculture. Well, not many people work in coal mining either. But for some reason, he seems very enthusiastic about protecting them.
So the cows are fine. Takeaway message.
And, yeah. All right, we should wrap up.
Yeah.
If you're genuinely concerned about the impact of climate change on agriculture, please share this video. Don't leave it to people like Matt Canavan to talk about what's in the best interests of farmers. He's clearly focused on what's in the best interests of coal.